Commander Do-hyun stood in the Great Hall of Nexus Prime, looking up at the 12 towering seats that held the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The air felt thick and cold. He could hear his heart beating in his chest. Today would change everything for humanity. The space station was huge beyond imagination. It had taken Do-hyun 3 days just to walk from the docking bay to this hall. The walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Strange symbols floated in the air, changing colors as they moved. This was where the Galactic Coordination Council made decisions that affected billions of lives across thousands of worlds. Do-hyun had been humanity's voice on the council for 5 years. He knew each of the alien leaders by name. He had shared meals with some of them. He thought he understood them. But today, their faces looked different. Today, they looked like judges. Ambassador Nara stood beside him, her hands folded behind her back. She was young for a diplomat, only 32. But she spoke 15 alien languages and understood their cultures better than anyone else from Earth. Her dark eyes showed no fear, but Do-hyun could see the tension in her shoulders. The emergency session will now begin, announced High Judge Mordans. The ancient leader of the ethereal assembly floated above his seat, his body made of pure energy that shifted between purple and gold. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once. We are here to discuss the human problem. The human problem. Do-hyun felt his stomach drop. He had hoped this day would never come. Counselor Vexathari rose from her crystalline seat. The leader of the Silicon Collective was beautiful in an alien way. Her body made of living diamond that caught the light and threw rainbows across the hall. But her voice was cold as space. Humans have broken 17 galactic laws in the past year alone. We have proof, added Counselor Thekmar, his insect eyes clicking as they focused on the human delegation. 3 human colonies have developed faster-than-light communication without council approval. This technology was restricted for good reason. Do-hyun stepped forward. Honored counselors, we developed this technology to save lives. The colony, on Kepler 442b, was hit by solar flares. Without instant communication, we could not coordinate rescue efforts. 200,000 people would have died. The law is the law, Vexathari replied. You should have requested permission through proper channels. That process takes 6 months, Nara said, speaking for the first time. Those people would have been dead long before we received approval. High Judge Mordans raised a glowing hand for silence. There are other charges. Humans have been sharing advanced technology with species the Council has classified as unprepared for such knowledge. Do-hyun knew this was coming. He had hoped they would have more time. We shared medical supplies with the Kethvar people. They were dying from a plague that we could easily cure. The Kethvar were deemed unsuitable for technological advancement, said Counselor Nalgorim, his massive bulk shifting on his seat. The whale-like being's voice rumbled like thunder. They lack the mental capacity for responsible use of advanced science. They lack nothing but opportunity, Do-hyun shot back, his voice rising. Every species deserves the chance to grow and learn. The Council seems to think otherwise. A wave of angry sounds filled the hall. The 12 council members communicated in clicks, whistles, and energy pulses. Do-hyun could not understand most of it, but he knew they were not happy. Vexathari's crystalline form pulsed with red light. This is exactly why humans are dangerous. You do not respect order. You do not follow rules. You think you know better than beings who have guided the galaxy for 10,000 years. Maybe we do, Nara said quietly, but her words carried clearly in the huge hall. The silence that followed was deafening. High Judge Mordans floated higher above his seat. The human delegation will remain silent while we discuss their fate. For the next 2 hours, Do-hyun and Nara stood in the center of the hall while the council debated. Some spoke in languages they could understand. Others used sounds that human ears could not even hear. But the meaning was clear. Humanity was on trial, and the jury had already made up their minds. Do-hyun thought about Earth, so far away. He thought about the colonies where millions of humans lived and worked and dreamed of a better future. He thought about the alien friends they had made, the species they had helped, the lives they had saved. All of it might end today. We have reached a decision, High Judge Mordens announced finally. The hall fell silent. Even the floating symbols stopped moving. Humanity will be restricted to their current 17 star systems. No expansion will be permitted without council approval, which will not be given for the foreseeable future. All human research and development will be subject to mandatory council oversight. Sharing of technology with non-council species is forbidden under penalty of complete isolation. Do-hyun felt the words hit him like physical blows. They were caging humanity like dangerous animals. Furthermore, Vexathari added, council monitoring stations will be placed in every human system. Any violation of these restrictions will result in the complete quarantine of human space. The vote is 11 in favor, 0 against, with 1 abstention, High Judge Mordans announced. The human delegation did not get a vote on their own fate. Do-hyun looked up at the 12 beings who had just condemned his species to a cage among the stars. This is not justice, he said. This is fear. Fear of what humans might become if left unchecked, Councillor Thekmar replied. Your species is too young, too reckless, too dangerous to be allowed free rein in the galaxy. We have contributed more to galactic medicine and engineering in 47 years than most species do in centuries, Nara said, her voice steady, despite the devastating verdict. And that is precisely the problem, High Judge Mordans replied. Change comes too, quickly with humans involved. The galaxy needs stability, not revolution. Do-hyun took a deep breath. He looked at Nara and saw something in her eyes. A tiny nod. A message. They had prepared for this possibility. The council has spoken, he said formally. Humanity will comply with these restrictions. But as they turned to leave the Great Hall, Do-hyun caught Nara's eye again. Both of them knew the truth. Humanity would comply with the letter of the council's law, but not its spirit. They had been preparing for this day for years. The real game was just beginning. As they walked through the crystal corridors of Nexus Prime, heading back to their small diplomatic ship, Nara whispered just loud enough for Do-hyun to hear. Quantum communicator is ready. Our people will know within the hour. Do-hyun nodded, but said nothing. The council thought they had won. They thought they had successfully caged the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They were about to learn that humans were more dangerous when caged than when free. The ship's engines hummed to life as they prepared to return to Earth with news. That would change everything. But humanity had already changed the rules of the game. The council just did not know it yet. 6 months had passed since the council's verdict, and their monitoring stations reported exactly what they expected to see. Human ships moved only between approved systems. Human colonies showed normal activity levels. Human research seemed to have slowed to an acceptable pace. The council members were pleased with themselves. They had successfully contained the most unpredictable species in the galaxy. They were completely wrong. Dr. Tae-min floated in zero gravity inside research. Station Whisper, hidden deep in the asteroid belt of the Ross 128 system. The station looked like just another piece of space rock from the outside. Inside, it held some of the most advanced laboratories humanity had ever built. Hand me the quantum resonance scanner, he called to his assistant, Dr. Lee Won. They had been working for 18 hours straight, but neither felt tired. They were too close to a breakthrough. The new batch of nanobots is ready for testing, Lee Won replied, carefully passing the delicate instrument through the air. If this works, we can cure almost any disease in minutes instead of months. Tae-min smiled as he began the final calibration. The council thought they were stopping human progress. Instead, they had only made humans more creative. When you could not build research stations on planets, you built them in space. When you could not get permits for new technology, you developed it in secret. Dr. Tae-min, came a voice through the communication system. It was Jin Ho, their communications specialist. At only 25, he had already revolutionized how information moved across the galaxy. We have an urgent message from Captain So Young. Put her through, Tae-min replied, still working with the scanner. Captain So Young's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but determined. Her merchant ship, the Soul's Pride, was officially carrying simple trade goods between human colonies. Unofficially, it carried much more important cargo. Doctor, we have a problem. she said without preamble. "The HFY are dying faster than expected. The plague has mutated. They need the new medicine now, not in 3 weeks." Timing stopped working. The HFY were reptilian beings who lived on 7 worlds near the edge of human space. The Council had written them off as developmentally insufficient and refused to help when the plague started killing them. Humans had been secretly working to save them. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Days. Maybe hours for some of the children," So Young replied. "I can get there in 12 hours if I push the engines hard." "The nanobots are not finished testing," Li Wan whispered. "We do not know if they are safe." Taemin looked at the data on his screens. The new nanobots could cure the plague, but they had only been tested in computer simulations. Using them on living beings was a huge risk. "Send them anyway," he decided. "The risk of the cure is better than the certainty of death." "Are you sure?" So Young asked. "Yes. Jin-Ho, contact Elder Korath. Tell him the medicine is coming." Jin-Ho's fingers flew over his keyboard. His quantum communication system could send messages instantly across thousands of light years. The Council's monitoring stations would never detect it because it used principles of physics they did not understand. "Message sent," Jin-Ho reported. "Elder Korath confirms they are ready to receive the shipment." So, Young nodded grimly. "I will be there in 11 hours. Soul's Pride out." The screen went dark. Taemin turned to Li Wan. "Pack everything. We need to send enough nanobots to treat 2 million HFY. "That will take our entire production run for the next 6 months," Li Wan protested. "Then we will make more," Taemin replied. "That is what humans do." While the scientists worked frantically to package the experimental medicine, Jin-Ho was busy with his own tasks. His communication network connected 43 star systems that the Council either ignored or actively suppressed. Every day, he relayed messages between resistance groups, shared technological data, and coordinated relief efforts. "Incoming message from the Luxani energy beings," he announced. "They have successfully modified 3 Council surveillance drones using the techniques we sent them." "Any word from the Nalthek?" Taemin asked, not looking up from his work. "Their new biotechnology is exceeding expectations. They have grown living ships that can adapt to any environment. The Council has no idea how they suddenly became so advanced." This was the secret that the Council had missed. Humans were not just breaking the rules for themselves, they were teaching others to break free as well. Every species that the Council had dismissed or restricted was quietly becoming more advanced, more independent, more dangerous to the old order. "Dr. Taemin," Jin-Ho called urgently. "We have a problem. Agent Zilquan is sniffing around the Proxima Centauri system. His ship has been scanning for hidden installations. Agent Zilquan was the Council's best investigator. If anyone could discover what humans were really doing, it would be him." "How close is he to finding anything?" Taemin asked. "Too close. He has already detected some unusual energy signatures. Captain So Young barely avoided his ship yesterday." Taemin made a quick decision. "Signal all hidden stations. Begin Protocol 7 immediately." Protocol 7 was their emergency plan. Within hours, dozens of secret research stations would pack up their most important equipment and move to new locations. It would set their work back by months, but it was better than being discovered. "What about the HFY medicine?" Li Wan asked. "So Young will have to take a longer route. Jin-Ho, contact Hyunsu. We need the military networks to provide escort." Hyunsu had been a strategic planner for Earth's military before the Council's restrictions. Now he coordinated something. Much more important, a network of resistance cells spread across dozens of star systems. Officially, they were merchants, miners, and colonists. Unofficially, they were soldiers in a war the Council did not even know was being fought. "Hyunsu's network is already moving," Jin-Ho reported. 3 escort ships will meet So Young at the halfway point." As the hours passed, the hidden network of humanity sprang into action. Research stations disappeared from their old locations and reappeared in new ones. Supply ships changed their routes. Communication frequencies shifted to new quantum channels. Agent Zilquan's scanners found nothing but empty space and cold asteroids. Meanwhile, Captain So Young pushed her ship harder than ever before. The Soul's Pride was not built for speed, but human engineers had made some modifications that were not in any official blueprints. Her engines burned hotter and brighter as she raced toward the HFY worlds. "Captain," her navigator Jiwoo called out, We are receiving a transmission from Elder Koreth. The elderly Kethvar leader appeared on their screen. His reptilian features showed the strain of watching his people die. Captain So Young, the situation grows worse. We have lost 3,000 in the last day alone. We will be there in 4 hours, So Young promised. The medicine will work. Humans do not. Give up on their friends. Friends, Elder Koreth repeated, his voice full of emotion. The council called us unsuitable for advancement. They said we were too primitive to deserve help. But humans saw us as equals. You are equals, So Young replied firmly. The council judges species by their technology. Humans judge them by their hearts. When the soul's pride finally reached the Kethvar worlds, they found a species on the edge of extinction. But within hours of administering the nanobots, the plague began to retreat. Children who had been dying sat up in their beds. Adults returned to work. An entire civilization was saved. Elder Koreth sent a message that Jin-Ho relayed across the secret network. The humans have given us life. We will not forget. But the Kethvar did more than remember. Within days, they began studying human technology, learning human methods, adopting human values. They started reaching out to other suppressed species, sharing what they had learned. The Council's monitoring stations detected none of this. They saw only normal trade between approved systems. They missed the real revolution happening right under their noses. In his hidden command center on Luna, Do-hyun read the reports with satisfaction. The Council thought they had won 6 months ago. Instead, they had only made humanity more determined. How many species are in the network now? He asked Nara. 47 confirmed, 12 more asking for inclusion, she replied. Agent Zilquan suspects something, but he does not know how big this has become. Do-hyun nodded. Soon the Council would learn the truth. They had tried to cage humanity, but humans had used that time to free everyone else. The game was changing, and the Council did not even know they were losing. Agent Zilquan stood before the 12 Council members, his scaled hands trembling with barely controlled rage. For 3 months, he had investigated strange energy readings, impossible technological advances, and suspicious activity across the galaxy. What he had discovered would shake the foundations of galactic order. The humans have deceived us completely, he announced, his voice echoing through the Great Hall of Nexus Prime. They never stopped their activities. They simply became invisible, high. Judge Mordauns floated higher above his seat, energy crackling around his ethereal form. Explain. Zilquan activated his holographic display. Images filled the air above the council chamber. Star maps, energy signatures, intercepted communications, and surveillance footage. While we watched their official colonies, they built a secret network spanning 68 star systems. Counselor. Vex Thari's crystalline body pulsed with angry red light. Impossible. Our monitoring stations would have detected any major construction. They built nothing major, Zilquan replied grimly. Hundreds of small installations hidden in asteroid, fields disguised as space debris or buried inside moons, each one too small to trigger our sensors, but together they form the largest research and communication network in galactic history. The holographic display showed a web of connections spreading across known space like a virus. Red lines connected. Dozens of points of light, each representing a hidden human installation or allied species. There is worse news, Zilquan continued. They are not working alone. 43 species that we classified as restricted or unsuitable have suddenly developed advanced technology. The Kethvar have built their first starships. The energy being Luxani have learned to manipulate our surveillance drones. The insectoid Nalthek have created biotechnology that rivals our own. Counselor Thekmar's insect eyes clicked frantically. How is this possible? These species lack the mental capacity for such advancement. That was our mistake, Zilquan said bitterly. We assumed they lacked capacity because they lacked opportunity. The humans gave them that opportunity. The display changed to show intercept messages between human agents and alien resistance groups. Plans for technology transfer, coordination of supply runs, sharing of research data, all of it flowing through Jin-Ho's quantum communication network. They have been teaching entire civilizations to stand up against us, Zilquan explained. Every species we ever restricted or dismissed is now part of their network. They call it the Liberation Alliance. High Judge Morden's energy form flared brighter. How many beings are we talking about? Conservative estimates suggest over 12 billion intelligent beings across those 43 species, Zilquan replied. If they were to coordinate their actions. He did not need to finish. Everyone in the chamber understood the implications. Counselor Nalgorim's massive bulk shifted nervously. What do you recommend? Complete quarantine of human space, Zilquan said without hesitation. Deploy our enforcement fleets immediately. Cut all communication lines. Isolate them completely before this infection spreads further. Agreed, Vexathari declared. The human experiment has failed catastrophically. They are too dangerous to remain free. The vote is unanimous, High Judge Mordans announced. Prepare the enforcement fleets. Operation Cage begins immediately. But the Council had made a critical error. They assumed that human intelligence networks worked like their own, slow, hierarchical, dependent on official channels. They gave the deployment order at 0800 Galactic Standard Time. By 0801, Jinho had intercepted their communications. By 0803, every human installation in the galaxy knew what was coming. By 0805, the Liberation Alliance was mobilizing for war. Commander, Du Hyun stood in the Situation Room beneath Luna's surface, watching tactical displays light up with activity. This moment had been inevitable since the day the Council first voted to restrict humanity. Council fleets are moving toward all 17 human systems, reported Colonel Min Ho, Du Hyun's military coordinator. Estimated time to arrival, 18 hours. Status of evacuation protocols? Do Hyun asked. All critical personnel and equipment are already moving to secondary positions, Nara replied from her communication station. The Council will find our official colonies, but they will find them empty of anything important. This was the beauty of the human strategy. They had never put all their eggs in one basket. Every important installation, every crucial piece of technology, every key researcher had multiple backup locations. When the Council came to cage humanity, they would find the cage already empty. What about our allies? Do Hyun asked. Hyun-Soo stepped forward from the tactical display. The former military strategist had been planning this moment for 2 years. 28 species have confirmed they will declare independence from Council authority when the fleet arrives. The Kethvar are already mobilizing their new ships. The Luxani have begun disrupting Council communication networks. And Dr. Yunji's research? Complete, Hyun-Soo smiled grimly. She has documented proof that the Council has artificially suppressed the development of 67 species over the past 3 millennia. The evidence is devastating. Dr. Yunji had spent years studying alien biology and psychology. Her research proved what humans had always suspected. The Council did not guide galactic development. They controlled it. They kept other species dependent and weak to maintain their own power. Begin Phase 2, Du Hyun ordered. Across the galaxy, the Liberation Alliance moved with precision that amazed even human observers. The Kethvar launched their first space fleet, ships grown from living metal that could repair themselves and adapt to any attack. The Luxani began jamming Council communications, their energy forms slipping through electronic systems like ghosts. The Nalthek released swarms of biotechnological constructs that could disable Council technology without harming living beings. But the most devastating attack was not military. It was informational. Kiwan, humanity's diplomatic liaison with the Liberation Alliance, stood before a galaxy-wide broadcast network that reached every civilized world. The transmission was simultaneously translated into 847 languages and beamed to every communication device in known space. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, her voice calm but determined. For 3,000 years, you have been told that the Galactic Council guides your development for your own good. Today, we reveal the truth. The evidence that Dr. Yunji had collected filled screens across thousands of worlds, internal Council documents showing deliberate suppression of technological development, records of species that had been kept primitive, through selective intervention, proof that the Council had prevented the natural evolution of galactic civilization for millennia. The Council did not restrict humanity because we were dangerous, Kiwan continued. They restricted us because we asked the wrong question, not how can we serve the established order, but how can we help everyone reach their potential? The broadcast showed images of human-assisted medical advances saving lives across dozens of worlds. HFY children playing in schools built with human engineering. Luxani energy beings working alongside human scientists to unlock the secrets of faster-than-light communication. "We do not seek to rule you," Kiwan declared. "We seek to free you to rule yourselves." The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. On council-controlled worlds, protests erupted in major cities. Species that had never questioned their restrictions suddenly demanded answers. The rigid order that had maintained galactic peace for 3 millennia began to crack. Council enforcement fleets arrived at human systems to find them strategically abandoned, but not destroyed. The colonies were intact, the infrastructure functional, but the people were gone. It was the most polite evacuation in military history. Admiral Keth Dorian, commanding the largest council fleet in history, stood on the bridge of his flagship staring at empty human cities. His tactical officer reported what sensors were detecting. "Sir, the colonies appear to be completely evacuated. No life signs detected." "Where did they go?" Keth Dorian demanded. "Unknown, sir. There are no hyperspace trails leading away from the system." What the Council did not understand was that humans had not fled. They had simply moved to places the Council did not know existed. Hidden bases, underground cities, mobile installations that could relocate at a moment's notice. Humanity had turned their entire civilization into a guerrilla operation. But the real shock came when Council forces tried to pursue their investigation. As they moved deeper into what had been human space, they encountered unexpected resistance. HFY ships appeared from nowhere, using technology the Council had never seen before. Luxani sabotage left Council vessels dead in space, their electronics fried by energy beings who could exist inside computer systems. Nalthek bioconstructs swarmed over Council ships, disabling weapons and engines without harming crew members. "Sir," reported the tactical officer on Admiral Keth Dorian's flagship, "we are receiving surrender demands from the HFY fleet." Surrender demands? Keth Dorian could not believe what he was hearing. "The HFY do not even have space. Travel." "Sir, they are requesting that we withdraw from their space immediately or face the consequences." "Their space? This is neutral territory." "Not anymore, sir. The war that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was not a war of conquest or territory. It was a war of liberation, fought not with the goal of destroying enemies, but of freeing friends." Fleet Admiral Bay stood on the bridge of the New Sol, humanity's first officially built warship in over a year. Around her, displays showed the positions of Liberation Alliance forces across dozens of star systems. They were outnumbered 3-1 by Council fleets, but they had advantages the Council could not match. Enemy fleet approaching the HFY. "Homeworld," reported Captain Dongwu from his tactical station. 60 Council ships, including 2 dreadnoughts. "How many HFY defenders?" Bay asked. 15 ships, Admiral. But they are using the new bio-adaptive technology Dr. Taymin helped them develop. Bay smiled. The Council still thought in terms of traditional warfare. Bigger ships, more firepower, overwhelming force. They did not understand that the Liberation Alliance fought differently. "Signal the HFY fleet. Tell them to begin Pattern Delta." Pattern Delta was a tactical formation developed by Hyun Soo that took advantage of the unique capabilities of each allied species. The HFY ships would engage directly, their living metal hulls adapting to enemy weapons. The Luxani energy beings would slip through Council shields to disable key systems. The Nalthek bioconstructs would swarm enemy vessels, making them impossible to control without harming their crews. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Park, "we are receiving a transmission from Elder Koreth." The elderly HFY leader appeared on screen, but he looked different than before. Stronger, more confident. The disease that had nearly killed his people was gone, cured by human medicine. His species had not only survived, they had thrived. "Admiral Bay, my ships are ready. We will not let the Council destroy what we have built together. Elder, remember that our goal is not to kill Council forces. We want to free them from their own system." "Understood. My captains have strict orders. Disable, do not destroy. Capture, do not kill. We fight for liberation, not revenge." This was the key difference between the Liberation Alliance and the Council. The Council fought to maintain control. The Alliance fought to end the need for control. The battle at the Kethvar homeworld became a perfect example of this new kind of warfare. Council ships arrived expecting to face primitive defenders. Instead, they found vessels that seemed to anticipate their every move. Kethvar ships split apart when hit, only to reform moments later with their living metal hulls stronger than before. Council energy weapons were absorbed and redirected back at their sources. Most importantly, when Council vessels were disabled, they were not destroyed. Their crews were treated as prisoners of war, not enemies to be eliminated. Admiral Cathadorian, commanding the Council fleet, found his flagship surrounded by alien vessels he could barely understand. His weapons officer reported that all their systems were being systematically shut down by energy beings that had somehow infiltrated their computers. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human ship," his communications officer announced. Fleet Admiral Bay appeared on Cathadorian's screen. She looked calm, almost sympathetic. "Admiral, your fleet is surrounded and outmatched. I am offering you terms of surrender." "Humans do not take prisoners," Cathadorian replied angrily. "You are too violent for such civilized behavior." "Admiral, that is what the Council taught you to believe about us. But look around you. Your ships are disabled, not destroyed. Your crews are alive and unharmed. We have surrounded you, but we have not hurt you. Does this look like the behavior of mindless savages?" Cathadorian looked at his tactical displays. It was true. His entire fleet had been neutralized without a single casualty. His ships were intact, their crews safe, their dignity preserved. "What do you want?" he asked. "The same thing we have always wanted," Bay replied. "Freedom. For humans, for our allies, and eventually for your people too. The Council system does not serve anyone well, including Council species. You want us to betray our own government? I want you to think about whether your government deserves your loyalty. When did they last ask your opinion about galactic policy? When did they last consider the welfare of your people over their own power?" It was a dangerous question, and Cathadorian knew it. But as he looked around his disabled bridge, surrounded by alien technology that could have killed him but chose not to, he began to wonder if the humans might have a point. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the Council faced a crisis unlike anything in their 3,000-year history. 28 species had declared independence. Their enforcement fleets were being systematically defeated or captured. Most devastating. Of all, their own member species were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions. "The Human Information Campaign is working," reported Intelligence Director Velnoth to the assembled Council. "Protest movements have begun on 47 Council worlds. They are demanding answers about our historical policies." High Judge Mordanz's energy form flickered with agitation. "Then we give them answers. We explain why order must be maintained." "With respect, High Judge, our explanations are not being accepted. The humans have provided too much evidence of our interventions." Councillor Vexithari rose from her crystalline seat. "Then we must escalate. Deploy the full Council fleet. Crush this rebellion completely." "That would require mobilizing forces from our own homeworlds," Velnoth warned. "It would leave our core systems defensively weak." "Do it," Vexithari declared. "This human infection must be stopped before it spreads further." But as the Council prepared for total war, they received an unexpected transmission. It came from a human ship approaching Nexus Prime itself. Commander Du Hyun appeared on screens. Throughout the station, his image broadcast to every being on board. He looked older than when he had last stood before the Council, but his eyes burned with determination. "Members of the Galactic Council, I am returning to request an audience. But I am not coming alone." Behind Do Hyun's ship, sensors detected dozens of other vessels, ships from 28 different species all flying together in perfect formation. The fleet that approached Nexus Prime was not just human, it was the future of galactic civilization. "I am coming to present you with evidence that your own member species need to see," Do Hyun continued. "Evidence that will prove the Council system has failed not just oppressed species, but your own people as well." This was the masterstroke that Hyun Soo had been planning for months. It was not enough to defeat the Council militarily. They had to be defeated morally, politically, and intellectually. The Liberation Alliance fleet carried something more dangerous than weapons. They carried the truth. Dr. Yun-ji sat in her laboratory aboard the new Seoul, reviewing her final report. 3 years of research had uncovered the Council's deepest secrets. Not just their suppression of other species, but their manipulation of their own member civilizations. "Are you ready?" asked Ki-Wan, who would present the evidence to the galaxy. "The data speaks for itself," Yunji replied. "The Council species are as much victims as anyone else. Their populations have been kept ignorant of alternatives, fed propaganda about the dangers of change, told that the old ways are the only safe ways. And the proof about technological stagnation? Devastating. Council species have made virtually no significant advances in the past 1,000 years. They have been so focused on maintaining control that they stopped growing themselves. As the Liberation Alliance fleet approached Nexus Prime, they carried with them the power to change not just the galaxy's political structure, but its entire understanding of progress and freedom. Admiral Bay received reports from across the galaxy. Council fleets were surrendering rather than fighting. Council worlds were declaring neutrality. Most importantly, Council species were beginning to join the Alliance voluntarily. "Admiral," reported Captain Dongwu, "we have just received a transmission from the Veltani homeworld. They are requesting to join the Liberation Alliance." The Veltani were one of the original Council species. Their defection would be a devastating blow to Council authority. "What are their terms?" Bay asked. "No terms. They simply want to be free to make their own decisions about their future." This was what Do Hyun had predicted from the beginning. The Council was not just humanity's enemy, it was everyone's enemy, including its own members. All they had needed was someone to show them there was an alternative. The war was almost over, but the real work was just beginning. Defeating the Council would be easy compared to building what came next, but humans had always been better at building than destroying. As the new Sol approached Nexus Prime, Do Hyun prepared for his final confrontation with the beings who had tried to cage humanity. They had failed, but more importantly, they had awakened something in the galaxy that could never be put back to sleep, the idea that everyone deserved to be free. 1 year after the fall of the Galactic Council, Commander Do Hyun stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching ships from dozens of species dock peacefully together. The station floated in neutral space, serving as the headquarters of the Cooperative Assembly, the democratic body that had replaced the Council's authoritarian rule. The transformation had been remarkable. Where the Council had imposed rigid hierarchy, the Assembly encouraged cooperation. Where the Council had restricted development, the Assembly celebrated innovation. Where the Council had divided species, the Assembly brought them together. "The morning session is about to begin," announced Nara, approaching with a data pad in her hands. She now served as Secretary General of the Assembly, a position elected by representatives from 87 different species. "What is on the agenda today?" Do Hyun asked. He had been elected as the first president of the Assembly, but unlike the old Council positions, his term was limited and his power came from consensus, not authority. 3 new species requesting membership, a proposal for joint research into faster-than-light medicine, and a celebration of the Kethvar Cultural Festival, Nara replied, smiling. "Also, Captain So Young wants to discuss expanding trade routes to the outer spiral." Do Hyun nodded as they walked toward the assembly chamber. The new hall was nothing like the intimidating Crystal Cathedral of Nexus Prime. Instead of towering seats that looked down on speakers, the assembly met in a circular chamber where every representative sat as equals. As they entered, Do Hyun saw familiar faces mixed with new ones. Elder Korath represented the Kethvar people, his reptilian features bright with health and confidence. Dr. Tae Min had been elected to represent the scientific community. Even some former council members had found places in the new order, including Admiral Keth Dorian, who now commanded joint defense forces made up of volunteers from multiple species. "The Assembly recognizes President Do Hyun," announced the speaker, a floating energy being from the Luxani species. Do Hyun took his position at the center of the circle. Unlike the old council chambers, there were no elevated seats or symbols of power. He spoke as an equal among equals. "Friends and colleagues, 1 year ago we fought a war not for conquest, but for the right to determine our own futures. Today I am proud to present the annual report on galactic development." The holographic displays that filled the chamber showed progress that would have been unimaginable under the council system. Medical advances had eliminated 17 diseases that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. New transportation technology allowed even the most remote species to participate in galactic civilization. Most importantly, 43 species that had been classified as unsuitable for development were now contributing innovations that benefited everyone. The Nalthek bioships have reduced transportation costs by 60%, Do-hyun continued. The Velnari crystal computing systems have revolutionized data processing. The human Kethvar medical collaboration has extended average lifespans across all known species. But the greatest achievement was not technological. It was social. For the first time in galactic history, different species were working together, as true partners instead of competing for the approval of distant overlords. Dr. Yun-ji rose from her seat to address the assembly. Her research had provided the evidence that brought down the council, and she now led the Historical Truth Commission tasked with documenting 3,000 years of suppressed history. Our investigation has revealed the full scope of council manipulation, she announced. They did not just restrict individual species, they actively prevented the natural evolution of galactic civilization. Conservative estimates suggest that technological and social progress was delayed by at least a millennium. But we are catching up quickly, added Dr. Taemin from his seat. With free exchange of ideas and resources, we have made more scientific advances in the past year than the galaxy saw in the previous century. This was the true power of the human approach, not superior technology or military might, but the simple belief that cooperation produced better results than control. Captain So-young stood to address the Transportation Committee's proposal. Her merchant fleet had grown into the largest civilian transportation network in history, connecting worlds that had never traded with each other before. The outer spiral species have requested regular shipping routes, she reported. They offer unique biological resources in exchange for manufactured goods and medical supplies. The Kethvar have volunteered to provide bioadaptive ships for the longer routes. Elder Korath nodded approvatively. The Kethvar had become one of humanity's strongest allies. Their gratitude for the plague cure transformed into genuine friendship and mutual respect. My people are honored to serve the Assembly, he declared. The Council told us we were too primitive for space travel. Now our ships carry hope to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. This was repeated across dozens of species. Beings that the Council had dismissed as inferior were now proving their worth as equals. The galaxy was discovering that diversity was not a weakness to be managed, but a strength to be celebrated. As the assembly session continued, reports came in from across known space. The old council homeworlds were adapting to their new status as equals rather than overlords. Some embraced the change, their populations relieved to be free from the burden of maintaining galactic order. Others resisted, retreating into isolation, rather than accepting a diminished role. What about High Judge Mordens and the remaining council hardliners? Asked Representative Thekmar, the insectoid being who had once demanded humanity's restriction, but now served as an advocate for peaceful development. Jin Ho, now Director of Galactic Communications, answered from his seat. His quantum network, had evolved into the galaxy's primary information system, connecting billions of beings in real-time communication. They have established a separate government in the core systems, he reported. Approximately 40 star systems remain under traditional council control. They refuse diplomatic contact with the Assembly. And their military capabilities, asked Admiral Cathedorian, his former opposition to humanity replaced by professional respect. Minimal. Most of their fleets either joined the Assembly or declared neutrality. They have defensive capabilities but no offensive threat. Do-hyun, consider this information carefully. The old council remnants were not a military danger, but they represented something more troubling. The idea that the old ways were better, that freedom was too dangerous to be trusted. We will not force them to join us, he decided, but we will keep diplomatic channels open. When they are ready to participate as equals rather than rulers, they will be welcome. This was perhaps the most human approach of all, patience. The Council had tried to control change through force and restriction. Humans understood that real change came from within, when beings chose to embrace new possibilities rather than clinging to old certainties. As the session ended, Do-hyun walked through the station's common areas. In the commercial district, traders from dozens of species conducted business in languages that had never been heard together before. In the educational sector, young beings from different worlds learned alongside each other, sharing knowledge and perspectives that would have been impossible under the council system. He paused at a viewing port that looked out onto the docking bays. A HFY bioship was nestled next to a human cargo vessel, while Luxani energy beings moved freely between both ships, their forms flickering through the connecting umbilicals. Nearby, a group of Nalthek youngsters played with human children, their different physiologies no barrier to friendship. "Beautiful, is not it?" asked Nara, joining him at the observation window. "It is what we always knew was possible," Du-hyun replied. "The council saw differences as problems to be managed. We see them as opportunities to be explored." "Any regrets about how we handled things?" Du-hyun considered the question seriously. The transition from council rule to assembly democracy had not been without casualties. Some worlds had experienced unrest during the change. Some species had struggled to adapt to freedom after millennia of dependency. The economic disruption alone had caused hardship for millions. "I regret that it took so long," he finally answered. How many species might have flourished if the council had never existed? How many innovations were lost because beings were not allowed to develop their full potential? "But we cannot change the past," Nara pointed out. "We can only build a better future." As if to emphasize her point, an announcement echoed through the station. "Attention all residents and visitors. The HFY cultural celebration will begin in 1 hour in the main assembly hall. All species are welcome to participate." This had become a tradition on New Geneva Station. Different species took turns sharing their cultures, their art, their music, their stories. The HFY celebration would feature their traditional songs, performed now with human instruments and Luxani light displays. It was a perfect example of how different traditions could blend together to create something new and beautiful. Du-hyun made his way toward his quarters, passing through the residential section where beings from dozens of worlds lived side by side.